So today's reading is from Mark 9, verses 30 through 37, or 39, 37, yeah. They went on from there and passed through Galilee, and he did not want anyone to know, for he was teaching his disciples, saying to them, "The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him. And when he is killed, after 3 days he will rise." But they did not understand the saying, and they were afraid to ask him. And they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you discussing on the way?" But they kept silent, for on the way they had argued with one another about who was the greatest. And he sat down and called the 12, and he said to them, "If anyone would be first, he must be last of all and servant of all." And he took a child and put him in the midst of them, and taking him in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever receives one such child in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me."
Thanks, Grant. You guys can go ahead and sit down. Well, good morning. Good morning, good morning. It is great to see you guys. It's great to be here and to see your beautiful faces. So, yeah, I'm excited. If you got a Bible, you can open it up into back in Mark. We're back at it in our Mark series, chapter 9, where we're going to continue on in our series. And I got a question for you right here at the beginning. And the question is, who comes to your mind right now? So I want you to get your visual side of your brain out. Who comes to your mind when you think about a great human? A great human. Who comes to your mind? You don't have to say it out loud. In my mind, I think of people like warriors in ancient history, like Achilles, right? Anybody seen the movie Troy? I'm not recommending the movie, but it is one of those classic war movies. And Achilles, he's the main character in this movie Troy. And the very first scene is this massive warrior is coming out to fight against this army. And the opposing army wants them to go get Achilles. He's our fighter, and have him fight against this giant Goliath-looking guy who's just like terrifying. And so this little kid goes and gets Achilles, and he says, "Hey, Achilles, you're not going to believe it. This guy who you're going to fight against, he's massive. He's huge. He's scary." And the kid goes, "I wouldn't want to fight him." And Achilles is like just listening to him. He's kind of getting on his horse. He gets on his horse and he looks at the kid. And he goes, "And that is why your name will never be remembered." And then he just drives away. Rides away, I guess, on a horse. Rides away with just that one line. Didn't say a word, just that one line. "And that is why your name will never be remembered." We all want to be remembered. All of us. We all want to be remembered. We want our lives to leave a mark. We want our lives to be filled with purpose. We want our lives to be filled with meaning. And in essence, we want to be great. Every single one of us, we have been designed with a desire for greatness, for meaning, for purpose. I mean, on page 1 of the Bible, God created Adam and Eve, and he told them, "Go be great. Go be great. I want you to go rule. I want you to go cultivate. I want you to go be great." However, it doesn't take long for you to read in your Bible to realize something bad happened with that desire for greatness. Something corrupted it along the way. And our understanding of what it means to be great has really changed. When God says, "be great," we have construed that to mean, well, you have to have power, or you have to have control over other people. That's where our minds go. In order for us to be great, we think that people need to look at us. You want people to look at you. You want people to be drawn to think about, to serve you. That's our idea of greatness. The ancient philosopher Plato said, "How can someone be happy if they have to serve someone?" That's where a lot of our hearts are at too, right? It's like, serve someone? I'm not happy when I have to serve someone. That's ridiculous. I'll be happy when someone serves me. That's when I'll be happy. So here's what's amazing about all these stories about Jesus. All of the Gospels, Jesus just comes in with this idea where he's talking about a kingdom. And he comes into this world that we called the kingdom of darkness last week, and he just turns tables, right? He just flips everything on its head. He takes this idea, and our story is no different here. He takes this idea of greatness, and he says that the greatness that you were actually created for, and the greatness that will actually fill you with purpose and fill you with meaning, looks nothing like what you think it looks like. It looks nothing like that. And that's what our story is about. Our story is about Jesus creating a family. Okay, you could summarize the entire Bible as that, as God trying to get back his family that he created. And Jesus comes and he's creating a family, and he is teaching them what it truly means to be great. Okay, so that's the point of this story. And so we're just going to do what we do every single week, and we're just going to walk through it verse by verse and break it down. And it's nice. It kind of breaks down into 3 sections. So we started in verse 30, so just look at verse 30. Mark chapter 9, verse 30. It says, they went on from there. That is from the foot of the mountain. If you remember, they're on the mountain, Mount of Transfiguration. They come off the mountain. They meet the demon-possessed boy. Jesus casts out the demon. They're on the foot of the mountain, and they move on from there. They pass through Galilee on their way to where? Anybody? Jerusalem. They're on their way. This whole section, they're on their way to Jerusalem, to the cross. And he didn't want anyone to know. Why? This is Jesus. He never wants anyone to know who he is. Why? Well, for he was teaching his disciples. He was teaching them. In this story, this whole story, it's a theme in this story. It's actually 3 times it's pointed out that Jesus is teaching. This is a story about Jesus teaching. He's less concerned about gaining a massive following, and he is really, really concerned that his disciples, they understand what he's trying to tell them about greatness specifically. He's really concerned about that. And so he says to them, the Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him. And when he is killed, after 3 days, he will rise. But they didn't understand what he was saying, and they were afraid to ask. Any of you have been this student right here where you don't, somebody's trying to tell you something, you have no idea what they're saying, right? If I'm ever in I'm going to out myself. If I'm ever in a conversation with you and I just start like getting wide-eyed, I start shaking my head, and I say something like, that's crazy, just know that means I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm way too afraid to ask, right? So we've all been these disciples. But pay attention, because Jesus is teaching. He's teaching about true greatness. Look at verse 31. He calls himself the Son of Man. Now, we make a big deal about helping you understand that the Bible is a story, right? We always talk about these flashbacks. Son of Man, another flashback. Anybody know where it's a flashback to in the Old Testament? I'll give you a prize if you do. Not now, but maybe later. Anybody know? Son of Man, just yell it out. What? Daniel 7. Boom. Keith, you're getting a prize after this somehow. Daniel 7. It is an amazing story. It's where Daniel has a vision, and he sees the Ancient of Days. He sees God, and then all of a sudden, there is a human king who is also worshipped as God, and he is called the Son of Man. So all these Jewish readers, they all would have known, Son of Man, this is a human king who's worshipped as God. And Jesus calls himself the Son of Man. He is going to be delivered and handed into the hands of men? So just think about this for a second. Jesus, if he is who he's claiming to be, is the most powerful being in the universe. He is the King of Kings. That's what he just claimed to be when he said he's the Son of Man. He is the King of Kings. He is God in flesh, the most powerful being in the universe, and he willingly hands himself over to be killed by weak humans? Why? Well, it's his first lesson on greatness, and it's this. Greatness is power aimed at peace. Greatness is power aimed at peace. So getting ready for this message, I just Googled top 10 most powerful humans in history. Any guesses as to who some of the top were? I asked Kaylee this, and my wife, and she's like, I don't know, Hitler, Stalin, right? And that's where my mind went too. My mind went to like evil dictators, and you're right. The Google machine just typed it in there. Top 3, all ancient, horrible people. All ancient dictators. You know who number 4 was? Jesus. Jesus was number 4. Now, obviously, that doesn't, just because they come up with a list, doesn't make it right. But it does tell a story. It tells a story. Okay, so we've all experienced or know of people who have experienced others who have used their God-given power for corrupt reasons. Right? We've all experienced that or know of people who have. Abusive spouses, power-hungry bosses, overprotective parents, whatever it is. But here comes Jesus. Jesus comes along, and he uses his power in the exact opposite way. It's amazing. In the exact opposite way. He had a lot of power. He's the Son of Man. But he aimed his power at the cross. Jesus aimed his power at the cross and died so that you might have peace. So that you might have peace with a holy God. And then through that peace, Jesus, he is creating a world. He's creating a family that would be full of humans who have then in turn followed him by taking their power and aiming it at the peace and the prosperity of others. Aiming it not for your own selfish desires, not for your own power, your own control. He says, I'm going to change you. I'm changing this family into people who use their power to aim it at peace and prosperity. I say this a lot about Bible verses, but I do think that this has to be one of my favorite verses in the entire Bible. It summarizes almost the entire story of the Bible in just a couple of words. It's Isaiah chapter 2, verse 4. I'll just read it. You can look it up later. But it's the best example of this in the Bible. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 4. Isaiah is describing, essentially, when the earth will look like Eden again. He's describing this. What the book of Revelation would call the new heavens, the new earth. He's describing this. And here is how he describes it. In this time, when the earth will be Eden again, they, that is the people, the humans living there, they will beat their swords into plows. Now, I know at first you hear that and you go, I don't even know what that means. What are you talking about? Think about it for a second. They will beat their swords into plows. They will take the metal of their swords and they will melt them down and turn them into plows. Things used to create and to cultivate. Do you see? That has to be one of the most beautifully articulated lines in all of the Bible, because here's what it's saying. We as humans have gotten to a place where we create swords. We create death. We are bloodthirsty. We love violence, whether you like to admit it or not. And where this world is going, and specifically what Jesus is going to bring about, is a world in which he is going to so change the hearts of those who follow him and believe him that he will literally melt down acts of violence and create them into cultivating machines. Something that will look towards peace and be aimed at peace and prosperity of all of those around them. And I just love that. That has to be one of the coolest verses in all the Bible. And so in our story, Jesus, he's now gathering his followers, and that's you, if you know him. If you followed this Jesus, he's now gathering you, and he is teaching that the world that they were created for and one day will fully experience is actually a world that they're supposed to be acting out right now. We're not fully there, right? But right now, you are supposed to be acting as if you are living in Eden as a Christian. And so here's the question for you, Christian. What power do you have that needs to be aimed at peace? Parents? What power do you have that needs to be aimed at peace in the home? How do you wield your power when you're interacting with your children? That's convicting for me. Husbands, wives, how are you aiming your power at peace in the home, in your relationship? Neighbor, coworker, family member, church member? How are you aiming your power at peace in every situation that you're at if you're a follower of Jesus? That's what he wants you to see. Verse 33, let's keep going. And they came to Capernaum. And when he was in the house, that's the house that we've been seeing in the past months in this book, he asked them, what were you discussing along the way? Don't you love Jesus? He knows exactly what they were discussing. And he asked them, hey guys, what were you discussing along the way? And they became silent. For on the way, they had been arguing with one another about who was the greatest. Jesus just told them, guys, I'm about to die. That did not stop them from arguing about who's the greatest. Isn't that, that's us, right? That is so us. They just, doesn't matter. They're still going to argue about it. Maybe it was Peter, James, and John bragging to the other 9 because they had gone up to the mountain, right? We'd been up on the mountain, and you guys couldn't even cast out that demon. You guys are pathetic, right? Maybe that was, we're not told. We're not told. Bottom line is, what we see here is a picture of a group of disciples who are entitled. They're entitled. And then he sat down. So Jesus teaching. Rabbis would sit down to teach. We like to stand up and talk and walk, and they would sit down. Everybody would come around them. So he sits down and he teaches them, and he calls the 12, and he says to them, this is what I want you to really understand, 12. If anyone would be first, he must be last. He must be the lowest. He must be the least. He must be the least and to all and the servant of all. And he took a child and put him in the midst of them. Now, children, you have to get your mind back in the time frame. Children are somewhat admired in our culture today. They're cute. They're running around. They're wild, right? Not back then so much. Back then, and especially in a farming culture, they were viewed as weak. They were viewed as helpless, dependent, vulnerable, and even at times costly because they're another mouth to feed. And he took this child into his arms. Again, Jesus is radically changing this culture and this community. He takes this child into his arms and he says to him, verse 37, whoever receives me, and whoever takes this child and receives this child into his, I lost my spot. And taking him into his arms, he said, whoever receives, that is to really take into, to be on the same social level as one of these children, one of these weak, independent persons, if you receive this child in my name, and whoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me. And so here's Jesus' second lesson on greatness, what true greatness is. And it's this: greatness is humility. Greatness is humility. So here's a question. Are you a humble person? Or are you entitled? That's a striking question right there to some of your hearts. It was to me. I remember one time, it was right when I first got into ministry. I was just a part-time guy working as an intern, and I didn't know what in the world I was doing. And honestly, I was a little frustrated. And I was sitting around this campfire with a handful of people, and I'm just what I called venting. In all reality, I was complaining. And I was just sitting around this fire, and I don't really know what's going on, and I'm just complaining. And all of a sudden, I thought I was going to get sympathy at this moment, right? I mean, come on, give me some sympathy. Someone vent with me here. And there was a lady who looked at me, and she just looked me straight in the eyes, and she said, "It sounds like you're entitled." I was so mad. I was so mad when she said that to me. And you want to know why? Because I wanted to be great. I wanted to be great. And I needed someone to come into my life and to call me out and tell me that is not what true greatness looks like. That's not what true greatness looks like. So for some of you Christians here, you right now are being sat down by Jesus, and he is trying to teach you this. And he's asking, will you listen? Some of you are not humble. Some of you are entitled. You're proud, like the 12. And some of you are getting nervous. Wait a minute, that's me. Because as I'm writing this, I'm getting nervous because I'm going, my goodness, I am so entitled. So I just wrote down some things. Here are some signs that you might be proud and entitled. Here's some questions. Do you expect people to drop what they're doing to serve you? Are you an ungrateful person? Are you a critical person? Here's one that got me. Do you walk in a room wishing people would gravitate towards you? Oh, jeez. I have a mentor friend of mine. He would always say to me, John, if you ever walk into a room hoping that people will be drawn to you, you will always be miserable. You will always be miserable. In America, we have been sold on the same lie as the 12, except on steroids. And that lie is, you are the star of the show. This is all about you. It's all about you. There was a study done that tracked all of the books, all of the writings from the 1800s, from 1800 to 2000, and it tracked two words, give and get. And you know what plummeted? The more we became an individualistic society, the word give. And do you know what skyrocketed? The word get. The more we are focused on ourselves, the more we think about getting, and never giving. And this was the mindset of the 12. This is the mindset of me. And it's the mindset of some of you. But then Jesus comes along. I love Jesus because he's so tender. He doesn't come along. He doesn't just smack them upside the head. He loves them. And he comes along and he says, guys, I'm creating, you don't understand. I'm creating a radical family who considers others as more important than themselves. That's the kind of family he's creating. A family that doesn't just serve, they become servants. You see that? He didn't just say, hey, every once in a while serve. He says, no, I want you to actually become who you are, a servant. Somebody who doesn't just every once in a while sympathize with the lowly. He says, no, I want you to become lowly. I want you to become somebody who is neglected, somebody who is helpless, somebody who is in desperate need all the time. This is who I want you to become. What kind of family is this? It's the kind of family that is imitating what Jesus did for them on the cross. That's what kind of family it is. Jesus was first, and he became last when he was delivered over to death for your sins. Jesus was high. He was exalted into the heavens of heavens. He was exalted above everything, and he became low when he was rejected on the cross. He was praised in heaven, and he became a servant. That word means a table waiter. Jesus became a table waiter who is offering you something through his death and resurrection. He's offering you eternal life. He became great because he was humble. So put it to real life, just for your own heart. How do you need to imitate this humility if you're a Christian in the room? How? How can you? Maybe it's a confession of entitlement. Maybe you need to apologize to someone who you've been selfish towards. Maybe it's becoming a servant. Becoming a servant. Not just when it's convenient, but structuring your life around serving others. Realizing that this is not just about me. I mean, what if we became a church who was sold out to what Jesus just said here? What if Eden Church became a church that didn't care about being great from a worldly perspective? What if people saw us and they didn't say, wow, look at this, whatever, gym setup, but they said, wow, look at how they serve each other. Look at how they love each other. Look at how they love the neglected. Look at how they're drawn towards them. And Jesus is calling us to this life. He's calling us to a life that is great because your power is aimed at peace, to a great life because you are humble. And then finally, look at verse 38. Jesus said to them, or John said to them, teacher, there's your third theme here. Teacher, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him because he was not following us. And Jesus said, don't stop him. For no one who does a mighty work in my name will be able soon after to speak evil of me. For the one who is not against us is for us. And truly, I say to you, whoever gives a cup of water to drink because you belong to Christ will by no means lose their reward. And so here's the final teaching on greatness. Greatness is elevating others. It's aiming your power at peace. Greatness is humility, and then here, greatness, it's elevating others. So I'm a big basketball fan. I don't know if you know that about me. I love basketball, and the greatest basketball player of all time is Kobe Bryant, correct. Kobe Bryant, greatest basketball player of all time. I'll brainwash you eventually. Kobe Bryant, he was a great basketball player, okay? And he had a great game at one point in his career. Great game. In fact, he and his teammate, they combined together, just the two of them, for 84 points. Just the two of them. It was amazing. There's only one problem with that. Kobe Bryant had 81 points, and this teammate had 3 points. Here's how this works. There's two types of teammates in the world. There's one who loves the glory and looks at jealousy with the success of others. And then there's the other one who actually elevates those around them at the cost of their own glory. In our story, John's playing the role of a jealous teammate. That's what he's doing. He wants to score 81 points. He does not want to pass. In fact, Kobe went into the locker room and he told all of his teammates, you guys need to stop shooting because you're really bad. That's what he told them. This is the role that John is playing right here. He's playing the role of a jealous teammate, and Jesus wants to change him. He wants to change him into somebody completely different, and he wants to change you into somebody completely different. John sees this guy, this unknown guy, as less important than the 12, right? He sees him as less important, even though this guy apparently could do what the 12 couldn't do last story. If you remember, they couldn't cast out the demon. This guy at least casted out the demon, so it's even ironic. And his entitlement has led to jealousy of other teammates and actually goes on to try and suppress their own gifts. Do you see that in verse 38? He says, I tried to stop him. I tried to stop him. And so again, this gentle and lowly Savior of ours, he comes around and he just shatters our idea of what greatness looks like. And he teaches them that the kind of team, in a sense, the kind of family, the kind of world that he's creating, it's not made up of a few elite players. It is made up of one unified team who's elevating each other towards greatness, towards this image of greatness, which is Jesus. This is why one of my favorite verses in all the Bible, I said it again, I say it a lot. I got a lot of favorite verses. Hebrews 10:24. Where it says, don't neglect to meet together, because when you Christians meet together, you stir one another up. That's mob mentality right there. Mobs stir each other up, right? They stir each other up to anger, to violence, all of these things. But what do Christians stir each other up to, according to Hebrews 10:24? Stir each other up to what? to love and good works. And so I love to call the church, you guys, right here, we are called to be a heavenly mob. We are called to be a heavenly mob who is stirring one another up, getting each other all riled up, not for craziness and whatever, not for violence or slander, but for love and for good works. It doesn't matter if you are John, who was on the mountain with Jesus, or if you are this no-name guy. Jesus says you are on his team if you are following him, if you have followed him, and you are on this family, and you are vital to creating this new world that he's creating. You're vital to it. And I love how he ends it in verse 41. He says, even if all you have is just a cup of water, and you give that to someone, then you will receive your reward. You see, back then, if you were wealthy and somebody needed something, you'd give them food. You'd give them clothes. You'd give them a place to stay. If you were really, really poor and you wanted to give someone something, all you could do is just say, I don't have anything to give you, but I have this cup of water. So do you see what Jesus is saying? He's saying he doesn't care what kind of skill you bring to the team. He just wants you to go and elevate the team in whatever skill God has given you. That's it. So the question you have to ask yourself is, are you elevating those around you? Are you actually elevating those around you, or are you more concerned with scoring 81 points? Which teammate are you? I'll end with this story. There was a man named Ignatius who lived in the first century, and he lived right after the apostles. And he was a pastor in Syria, and he had a great ministry. He wrote a lot of books, and so we know a lot about him in history. And he was eventually arrested for his faith, and they sent him to Rome to wait to see if he would die for his beliefs. They sent him away to Rome. And along the way, while he was going towards Rome to find out if they're going to kill him or not, he wrote this: Christianity lies in achieving greatness in the face of the world's hatred. And then, they would go on to kill him, to feed him to the lions in the Colosseum, as they did a lot of Christians. But the question is, did he die a great man? Did he die a great man? Not according to the world's standards. People weren't serving him. They killed him. People weren't drawn to him. They threw him to lions. But was he a great man? Who comes to your mind when you think of great humans? What about this teacher named Jesus, who is powerful enough to give you peace with God, who was humble enough to serve you on a cross, and who is able to elevate you into his family, onto his team, and to give you that reward of eternal life?